Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux. Hello again, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another awesome episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. I'm Dr. Kate Campbell, here with my co-host.
Oh, I thought business partner and friend and colleague, Katie Lemieux.
Yes,
I'll just intro that part.
I know. I always say all of those things. So yes, you are all of those things and more to me. And today we are here with a very special guest in the office, Dr. Eva Brown.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, we are really excited to have you in the office today. And for those of you that don't know, which probably most of you won't know, that Eva and I have been working together at the same private practice. She works within Bayview Therapeutic Services for the past 4 years. So I've been able to get to know her professionally and personally, and she's just an amazing person, spirit. She works with individuals and couples, and she actually just graduated with her PhD. Woohoo! Yes,
Yeah.
Which is a huge mountain to climb, and finished her dissertation, which is actually very related to the topic we're talking about today. What's your money mindset? So this is all informed by her personal and professional experience, as well as her research and dissertation.
And it's exciting because I think I've been hounding you for over 6 months now.
A long time.
Yes.
Right? Long time.
I'm like, I want to talk about money. I want to talk about money. When can you come on? When can you come on? So we know that this is a topic probably every therapist needs to hear, and or at least every therapist has struggled with this topic and area in their practice at one time or another. I know I have. So this is really super awesome.
It's a journey with your relationship with money for sure. And I know we'll get into that in a few minutes. But before we get there, I'm going to share a few resources with you all. Make sure you visit the privatepracticestartup.com. Head over to our resources tab, and there you'll see the wealth of resources. Make sure you check out which ones seem the best for you, or if not all of them. We've got the A to Z cheat sheet, the essentials for starting your own private practice, the free HIPAA download. We've got our goal sheet. We've got all sorts of goodies for you guys there. So also we want to invite you to join our exclusive Insider Facebook group. There we have our podcast guest experts, professionals, and experts in the business and mental health arenas to help you along your journey from startup to mastery. So without further ado, let's have a chance to introduce Eva and share a few fun facts.
Yeah. So like Kate said, Eva is Dr. Eva Brown. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist right here in South Florida. She works within Bayview Therapeutic Services and also works collaboratively with her clients to help enhance overall relationship attunement and communication. She is a couples counselor and intimacy specialist, and her practice is mostly dedicated to teaching couples how increasing emotional vulnerability can lead to long-lasting intimacy and connection. Eva also does retreats for couples as well. Some fun facts about her: she gardens often. I know that when we were going to get together, she invited me to her house and said, well, we can hang out in the back in the garden.
I wanted to show you my garden.
I've seen
It's
pictures.
so beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing. You know, that's funny. I just have to share a little side note story.
Yeah.
One of the things that I hate to do is I hate pulling weeds. And when I was writing my dissertation, I was pulling weeds like crazy. It was like whatever I could do to avoid working on the dissertation. I know that's totally off topic, but
for those of you who actually got our free HIPAA download or will get that, it's funny because when I created the email just to say hi to you guys, as Kate put, I said, you'll do anything to distract yourself, right? When you don't want to do something.
Like cleaning kitty litter.
Right. And Kate added pulling weeds. So now I know where that comes from.
That's probably where I started my gardening during my dissertation.
So besides loving gardening, you also love animals, love to play with your poodle, and you're passionate about being a change agent in our world. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Your beautiful poodle Buster, right?
Buster,
yes.
The love of my life outside of my
black standard poodle, right? Is that what you call him?
Yeah, he's actually a miniature.
Oh,
it's
is
like
he?
20 pounds.
Oh, okay.
And he's amazing. He's got an amazing soul.
I always see your pictures with him. He's adorable.
You'll have to go check him out.
Yes.
So what led you into the business that you're in now, Eva?
Well, I've always loved helping people. Like Katie said, I'm passionate about being a change agent in the world. And, you know, I like to start small, right? So I got my master's, I got my PhD, like you guys have both mentioned, And I'm just very passionate about helping couples, especially. I really love to work in the areas that are taboo, right? Intimacy, sex, vulnerability, right? That's even taboo in our culture these days. So anything that has to do with those topics, I'm excited about.
That and money, right?
Yes,
the other taboo topic.
And money, which we're going to be talking about today.
No religions or politics, guys.
No,
okay, just money.
Yeah,
Forget
exactly.
about that.
What would you say is the best advice you've ever received as an entrepreneur?
That's a really good question.
Well, thank you.
The best advice as an entrepreneur is to know yourself, I would say. I remember one of my mentors, I'll give a shout out to her. Her name is Anne Marie Fino. And I got to know her when I was in the direct sales business. And she is all about self-examination, understanding yourself. And I think once you know your biases, your prejudices, and what informs you, you can be a better entrepreneur and a better leader.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Very well said. Can you share with our audience, Startup Nation, something that you've had to overcome to be where you are in business today?
Well, I think the topic that we're going to be talking about today, getting over my discomforts with money, was one of the biggest things that I had to do, because it hurt my bottom line, in terms of how much money I'm going to be making per year. And that's what fueled my interest in doing research on it. And it's interesting. I know I shared this with you guys earlier, but there's only 4 studies on money. Can you believe it, right? We live around money every day. We need it for our survival. And there's only 4 studies that have been on it. And the interesting part is that it's only been on intrapsychic work, which means within the person. There's nothing relationally done in terms of interpersonal connections. And so I'm like thinking, okay, this is definitely, as an MFT, I'm looking at the systemic relationship with money. And I started to really think about that. And I'm like, I'm wondering if other therapists are experiencing the same discomfort, because mine was definitely family of origin related.
And as you're just talking about this little part here, I'm just like getting flooded with my own like thoughts and history about money. Like when I opened my private practice, I think I said I was going to charge $80, right? And I was a licensed clinician at that point. And then I had a returning client that I had seen when she was actually a youth, and now she was an adult. And I had the feel bads. My office wasn't nice, and I only charged her $40.
Can I strangle you right now?
But no, really. And then as you're thinking about like the lost opportunity, I remember Kate and I had a conversation one time in regards to my previous cancellation
policy.
Yeah, Kate knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I did the math. Mm-hmm. I lost $10,000 in 1 year because of my discomfort with really setting my boundary around money. So obviously many things have changed since then. My policy is very strict, and I go by it. And I've increased my fees and increased, and I'm okay with that. Now.
I am too. I am too now. Exactly. I know exactly how you feel, Katie. And I'll just give you guys a little bit of vulnerability about, myself, because I think vulnerability is important for our culture. I had some money discomforts with regards to cancellation specifically. And when people told me, I can't afford your fee, right? And so in my family, I'm kind of silently responsible for them financially, because my dad went through a hard time with going into the hospital, those types of things. So I had to kind of take care of them for a while, which was hard for my family, obviously, but also hard on me. But it was almost like a silent responsibility as the oldest, right? The oldest daughter. And so when people would say, I really can't afford your fee, I'm having a hard time, can you help me out with this? Of course, my heart went out to them. And so, since that boundary with my family is very, diffuse, I was just like, yeah, sure. I'll give it to you for, $80. How's that sound? Can you afford that? No, I can't afford that. Okay, what's comfortable for you? And I did this for the first year of my practice, which wasn't actually in this office, because I had 2 years previous to coming to Bayview. And it was very hard for me, because I was thinking, man, and then some interpersonal resentment would start to come up too, which is a big thing that I learned about in my research. And I started to feel these bad feelings, and I didn't want to have any of that project onto my clients. So I really had to evaluate my relationship with money, and the research really helped to kind of pronounce that.
So let's jump into our topic. We are discussing what's your money mindset, and we have 4 tips. So Eva, tell us, what is tip number 1?
Okay, sounds good. So figuring out what your money discomforts are. This is all about exploration. There's no quick fix to your relationship with money, guys. It's one of those things that you really have to look inside and do some real work on.
Oh my gosh, I think I've been working on mine for like 10 years now, and I'm in it again. So you're right, no quick fix. It's a continuous exploration.
Yes, definitely. And especially as you increase your fee and you expand your business, and you increase your fee and you expand your business. And at some point, you're not using your money necessarily for survival. Now you're using it to take vacations. Now you're using it for extra things that you need in your life. And you're like, how do I get through that part? So anyways, the first tip is figuring out what your money discomforts are. So it could be fee setting, cancellations, sliding scale, collecting fees has been a big one. My research indicated that a lot of people had a hard time getting money after such an intimate conversation with their clients, right? And I have had, in my research, I had participants that were in their 40s and they were in their 50s and they've been in practice for 30 years and they're still experiencing this, which is very telling.
I'm glad you say that because honestly, and a little vulnerability aspect, authenticity here is when I first started in private practice. I said it.
Buzzword.
Authenticity cowbell right there, right? Is that I almost felt like a prostitute. Right? Like there's this such an intimate connection and now it's like, well, pay me. Right. And it's like, well, how do you say that? Right. And it's funny. I actually have an intern who I pick on often, because she always pays me in cash, but it's funny because she rolls it up and then she like passes it to me on
like a drug deal.
It's like a drug deal.
Yeah. And I joke around with her. I'm like, are we doing a drug deal again? I mean, other people are watching this, joking around, but initially in private practice, that felt really uncomfortable. And then, sometimes, clients, they're not aware, like, oh, I have to pay you or what not. They know they have to pay you, but it's almost like, all right, that was really great. And they want to leave. And you're like, pay me? Like, how do you say that? Right. And it took a really long time to be okay with that.
Yes. I've actually just started asking for payment at the beginning of the session. I've just transformed my whole way of dealing with that because it can be so delicate at the end of the session. Sometimes they're crying or you've talked about really deep stuff. And at the end, maybe you've run over. I mean, time management, that's a whole nother story, right? Making sure that you're staying on top of that. But when you're scheduling and then it's like, okay, well, can I have payment? And so a lot of times I was just typing in the credit card that I had on file for them because I knew that's how they wanted to pay. But I'm incurring all of the additional charges for that, which really adds up over a year. It really adds up a lot. So as of this year, 2017, I'm letting all my clients know that at the beginning of session, before we even get started with anything, we're going to get payment out of the way. So it's not rushed at the end. We're not rushing to wrap things up and scheduling it. It feels like so awkward. So they just know they need to pay. They need to either bring their card or cash or whatever at the beginning of session. We'll get it out of the way. And it's actually been going really well. People aren't off put by it like I thought they would be. And here I've been in practice for over 10 years and I'm just now making a change to help that feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more just flow better, Yeah,
and acknowledging the money factor and that there is power involved and there's lots of cultural expectations with money. And I know we're talking about our personal relationship with money as therapists, but a lot of the research that I talked about is how do we project that onto our clients, which is a huge ethical best practice thing to really consider when you're talking about your relationship with money. Because like, for example, if you switch up your fee, in the middle of 6 months, like you've been working with your client for 6 months or 3 months, oh, I just raised my fee. So how does that translate now to your customer, to your client, to the people that you're doing a lot of really vulnerable work with? So that's just another thought that I had as you were talking.
Sure. I mean, if the rent goes up or the economy changes, there's all sorts of different factors that come in, or you've been practicing for years and you've gained a lot more experience or expertise. You may want to consider raising your fee. And how do you handle that? Do you handle that with new clients only? Or do you wait till the new year? Or do you, in the middle of the year, approach that with your clients? Do you give them a letter? Do you just have a conversation? Do you have them re-sign your forms? How do you handle that? There's a lot of situations, a lot of little details that need to be addressed.
One thing that gave me permission, there was probably several things that gave me permission. I think I remember saying this to Kate, is that I remember going to Chipotle. I don't know, many times, several times a week sometimes, but I remember going to Chipotle and they raised their prices. And I in the discomfort of thinking about raising my own prices, there was this thought well, do I consult my clients? Do I talk to them about it? They're part of the process. I was like, Chipotle didn't consult me about raising their prices. I just had to pay, right?
That's right.
But obviously we do have a conversation with them to let them know. I don't have to consult them, but there was that like shift, that mindset shift for me in regards to, oh, it is okay to raise my fees because I decide, not because my client can't pay or I'd feel bad for them or they would feel bad. So
yeah, a lot of the research was kind of indicating that a lot of business people, that like restaurants and people outside of the helping industry, which is what we're in, the mental health industry, how do they raise their prices? How do they manage all of that stuff? It's totally different than how we're going to have a conversation with our clients. And so our relationship with money becomes then that so much more essential.
Yeah, cool. So let's go on to tip number 2.
Okay. So tip number 2, after you're kind of knowing what your money discomforts are, the next one is to get curious about your relationship with money, about your personal relationship with money, and your family of origins relationship with money. Now, this can get kind of tricky. I always say to do like a money genogram that tracks, wealth, poverty, giving back. Do your parents give back a lot? Entitlement, manipulation, control with money. These are all really big themes to really pick up on in your family systems. And, whatever it is in your family system, don't be afraid if it's a negative thing. Most relationships with money are negative. There's not a lot of healthy relationships with money out there because it's for survival. So it's a tricky thing. Don't be afraid to go into the negative aspects of it. It's not that your family's bad or whatever the case is, but it's a really important part to make a distinction about what your relationship with money is and how that's informing your practice. So do a money genogram. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
It's so interesting when I just think in my mind about what you're saying, and I can immediately identify different patterns from intergenerational patterns, multi-generational patterns that have been passed down that I repeat myself and drive me crazy about my parents and grandparents sometimes, but then here I am doing it. And my husband will call me out and he's like, what is this? And
it's
this pattern
subconscious.
will emerge. Yeah. Without you even really realizing. It's so interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think too, is just like asking yourself certain questions or what beliefs or things would your family always say? Mm-hmm. What do you think? Money grows on trees?
Yeah.
Like, did your dad say that? Did your mom say that? What do you think? I made of money? Or, whatever those things are, I think that will also help you identify a little bit more about what you're talking about, what those beliefs are and things like that. So tell us what tip number 3 is.
Okay. So, tip number 3 is to ask yourself how your family of origin may have informed your relationship with money. And then how does that then translate to your fee setting? All right. So your triggers, your money discomforts. Is it cancellations again? Is it collecting money? Is it raising your fee? Is it lowering your fee? Maybe your fees are too high, right? That happens also. Maybe because there's some that are charging $300, $400, $500. And I'm not saying that's not the case, that they're not worth that. But in terms of what the market value is anywhere between $150 to $250, $300. So kind of thinking about, is your fee too high? Is it too low? All those kinds of distinctions are important because it has an impact in some way, not only just with your experiences with money personally, but definitely with your family of origin, which is what my research showed, just to point that out, that it is family of origin connected.
So in addition to the family of origin work and really looking within yourself, within your relationships, how you learned about money and your beliefs and your mindset and all of that, it's also good to do the market research like you're talking about to see what's the range between what therapists are charging for different specializations in your area. Maybe look in a 5-mile radius around your practice to see what people are charging, so you know that you're not overpricing yourself out of the market or underpricing yourself and undervaluing your services.
It's interesting you say that in the undervaluing thing. I know I had told you about the money mindset or money. I can't remember it now because I'm stuck on your topic, but there's an event coming here in Fort Lauderdale in 2 weeks. And I remember telling someone about it and they're like, well, what's the price? I go, well, general admission is free. But then this is this. And they said, why is it so cheap? Right. And it's so interesting to just watch how people's minds work, because if you do undervalue yourself, someone is going to question, why are your prices so inexpensive. You must not be worth it. Do I go with you?
Yeah, there's actually research on that. They did a research study on where there was people were charging $150 and the people that were charging $80, and there were more people that are interested in the $150, therapist, let's say, than there were for the $80 therapist because they thought they were better.
Can you say that again, Eva, for our audience?
Oh, because they thought they were better.
Yeah. Were you guys listening?
Right. Which goes back to confidence, right? And all of those things too.
So, and that's all about psychology. And it doesn't mean if you're charging 80 that you're not good or whatever, but It's just something for you to really look at in regards to your own money beliefs. Mm-hmm. So what is number 4?
Okay. So number 4, after you access your triggers, the next step will be to figure out how you're going to adjust your relationship with money, right? How are you going to deconstruct that? So now, after you've done all of this, are you okay with your fee in terms of where it's at right now? Do you want to decrease it? Do you want to increase it? And then why? And I really want you to dial in on that why, because it's very, very important to the context of your relationship with money.
So give us an example.
Okay.
You say the why.
So, for example, one of my participants, was doing very low cost fees, and she, after our interview, she said, I don't think I'm going to raise my fee. And I said, well, how come? And she said, well, I like my fees where they're at because I've learned about myself in this interview, and I like to give back. I'm not using this. I'm not using this income as my survival money. I'm using it as a way to give back to the community. So one of the themes in my research was giving back to the community, which is pretty nice if you think about that. And she was okay. She was okay with the idea that she was going to give back. And so she didn't want to raise her fee, and that's fine.
So I think that's a perfect example of why, and that makes sense. So I really like that. And what is your why behind why you do what you do in regards to the money that you charge? And then I think if we know our why and we're charging only a certain fee, we can be in alignment with that, and it decreases the resentment and frustration.
Exactly. Right. Precisely.
As therapists, we have an ethical obligation to give back and to contribute in some way. So knowing where you are financially and looking at those numbers and being where you want to be allows you to be able to give back in the ways that you want.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What would you want to make sure our listeners take away from your message today, Eva? Dr. Eva, excuse me.
Get it right, Kate. No. I've worked hard on that. So I would say that money represents survival to most of us, okay? And it represents fear for us. So we really have to be clear about what our relationship with money is so we can overcome those fears. And real quick, I know that we're kind of dialing down on time here, but the coolest thing about the research is that most of the people that were presented, 4 out of the 5, they had multi-generational entrepreneurship in their family, which is really cool. And the one that didn't have entrepreneurship in the family system didn't use it as a full-time income, which is really interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So that was one of the coolest things that I took away from that. And, just in general, like I said, knowing your fear, it is a big jump, going into private practice, and you want to be mindful of that. But I would say that a lot of people go through that. It's just kind of analyzing it. And if you're thinking about going into private practice, definitely consider your relationship with money as a big factor.
I can totally see you as like a money mindset consultant for private practitioners.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about it.
Well, you're going in that direction. So why don't you tell our audience about your really cool giveaway?
Yeah. So one of the new companies that I've just opened, it's called Taboo Talk Time. And I'm really excited about it. I'm very passionate about the idea of breaking through the taboo. And it's time to start talking about it. And I'm going to start doing a money mindful money workshop in which you guys are welcome to 15% off. Anybody that's listened to this podcast, please, email me, call me, whatever you prefer. Let me know that you've listened, and I will make sure that you get that 15% off.
And just say you heard it from the Private Practice Startup and you are part of Startup Nation.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure to include those links and Dr. Eva's contact information in the show notes so you guys can check it out there. And I know you have some books to recommend or a resource for our audience. What would those be?
All right. So one of my favorite books is The Energy of Money. And I would highly suggest that. And of course, my dissertation. If anybody's so daring to go out and read that, we can post the link. It's 250 pages. Good luck.
Is that like something if you need if you're having trouble sleeping at night?
If you're having
like
trouble
Ambien
sleeping,
or something like that.
I would probably just go to chapter 4 and chapter 5. That's all you need to know.
You'll be good.
Yeah.
Cut the fat and get to the chase.
Get to the chase.
Awesome. And I love that book too, The Energy of Money. And actually, a psychologist wrote that book. And there's a whole bunch of activities and exercise to continue to explore your relationship with money. So you can listen to this podcast, really answer those questions that Eva was talking about, but also check out the Energy of Money book.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for being on our show today. We had a great time and appreciate your perspective and research-based perspective, really, on mindset about money. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, Startup Nation, on your end. We want to make sure that you check out our show notes page for all the tips, resources, and links from today's show. And again, it's totally cool to share this with your friends and colleagues as well. We hope you have an awesome Inspire Day and look forward to continuing to inspire you along your journey from startup to mastery.
See you later, Startup Nation, and go out and raise those fees if it answers your why.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.